That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people Greenworks. Isn't sunshine and rainbows, and isn't, everyone sees you doing so well.
For just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Hey, welcome to the dungeon. Today we've got Greenworks Gary with me.
Hey Gary, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm
Glad to
doing
be here.
well. I'm a little bit sad because I was hoping to be giving you a cuddle in person, so we just got to do the digital reach.
Digital reach, mate. That cuddle in person will come again soon, I think.
Yeah, well,
But
we
yeah.
tried, but I think we'll make it work probably after I've been to Cape York.
Yeah. You're all geared up for that one now? Getting
Oh, look,
close?
it's only just over 2 weeks till I leave now.
Wow. I am jealous, mate. I haven't been there went there in 2010, so always
Yeah.
wanted to get back, but just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, well, I did a trip 6 years ago and then got a new bunch of friends that want to do it. So I'm like, yep, I'll come along. Sounds good to me.
Get it there before it changes a bit too much, they tell me.
I'm actually a little bit nervous about doing it this year because I've been watching. I was looking up last night what people are doing, and it's really messy up there at the moment. So if you've
lot of
got
rain.
your massive big monster truck, it'd be fun. But I don't. I've got my everyday Hilux.
Yeah, that's a Hilux, mate. I'm a Hilux man. He'll be right.
Well, I've got it booked in next week. It's getting new tyres on it and the diff breathers and the snorkel sorted out. And then the week
Yeah,
after
okay.
that, it's getting the major service, so the diff fluids and everything getting changed out. And once that's
Already.
done, I'm on the road.
Nice.
It's got Aussie Lawn Stars signage all over the canopy now, so it's
Oh,
a full
does it?
business trip.
Oh, do a podcast while you're up at the tip, mate.
I'm going to be stopping and catching up with contractors in Atherton and Cairns.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
I think I might have to do another couple of stops on the way back down and make it really worthwhile.
Yeah, mate, that'll up and back. You've got it covered.
That's it.
But no, thanks for having me. What did we talk about earlier? I met you at BJ's show last year in Brisbane in person.
Yeah, so
for
that's
the
12
first
months
time.
ago
So,
now.
Yeah. We been trying to make it work, but happy to be in the dungeon.
Yeah, finally got there.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I've been aiming to try and get as many brands as possible into the dungeon, not to be nasty to them, but because I want to share the love around. So, yeah, I want to give people a good coverage of what brands are available in Australia that suit contractors.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we get into Greenworks too much, I want to talk about your history. I think you've got some interesting history there.
Oh, yeah. I think in the power equipment industry, definitely.
So how long ago did you start?
So full time 2003. I started.
My son was born then, so that's getting on 21 years ago.
Yeah, well, we're same generation then, aren't we? So, it's started off. My family purchased a still shop in Jimboomba back in 1997. So,
Where the heck's Jimboomba?
yeah, that's what a lot of people say. It's definitely changed region since they purchased that business that long ago. Sort of Gold Coast hinterland, sort of the western side of Mount Tambourine, if you know where Mount Tambourine is, just there, and about 45 kilometres south of Brisbane.
I've
sort of
visited
inland.
Brizzy and the Gold Coast numerous times in the last 25, 30 years, but still, I know it better than Melbourne. So you hear me talk about Melbourne, I'm like, I've got no idea. But at least when I talk about Brisbane, I'm like, yeah, I know the basics.
You kind of know the basics, yeah. I've been living in Melbourne now for, what are we, 9 or 10 months, and I only know one part of it. So don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my grandfather and grandmother were looking for something to do when they turned 60, just for a couple of years and then retire. And then, well, what are they now? They still have the shop. I left the shop a couple of years ago, obviously, hence why I'm at Greenworks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the business is still in family hands now. So, but yeah, I started there. I finished high school, went to do some study. I started a diploma of justice. Actually, I was looking to be a police officer, or maybe in Queensland we call it an OP, and be a lawyer. But then just, I don't know, I ended up at the mower shop full time rather than part time, what I was doing from high school and when I was studying. So started
you
there.
You said it's a still shop, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, obviously you had Silvio from Still on the other week, and all your listeners would know. There's still dealers and then there's still shops. So a dealer is a full stockist dealer, but they can stock other brands. But as a still shop, you only keep the still handheld range of product. So you don't have other brands. So we're one of the first in Queensland, and I think the first 5 or 10 in Australia to take on that concept. So
Nice.
very, very strong with still.
So what's your favourite still product?
I'm old school. Even though I'm in battery OPE now, I still like an 088. I collect old chainsaws, so I got a couple of 090 Contras and that sort of stuff. But there's some pretty good gear in that range.
So you would have liked my talk with Silvio about my old 084 then.
I was like, yes, because I got one of them too. So I like the older stuff. They still go like the built for forever and a day.
I love
and some of the new
stuff.
gear as well. I got a 500i. I don't use it, but I've got one. It's a good saw.
Yeah, after I talked to Silvio, I got my 261 out, and I had a dead tree that'd fallen over. I was cutting up, and I started cutting it up with the battery saw, and then I got the 261 out to finish it off.
Yeah,
that's
a absolute beast. The 026 and 260s, and then the 261 are a good saw.
Yep. Yeah, I like it.
So
I talked to a tree lopper before I bought it, and the tree lopper made that recommendation for a good all-round saw that's, something that'll do everything without going to your 084 or your tree climber's saw.
Yeah, no. Every tree lopper, I reckon, in their kit, if they're a fan, would have one of those in their utes or fleet for sure. It's a power to weight of that saw is fantastic, which is why they would have recommended it for you.
I know when I bought that, tree loppers were either Still or Husky, and a lot of them were, off the top of my head, Still for the saw they use on the ground, and no, they were using a lot of Still for climbing saws.
Yeah.
And then Husky for all their big saws. And this guy was one of the first to say, no, get the Still for the bigger saw. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think the MS200, which is probably legendary arbor saw, when they switched from that to the 201, there were a couple of probably little teething issues, and everyone was so used to such a good climbing saw. When the 201 come out, it revved a bit slower and whatnot, so people probably chopped and changed there. But for the most part, they've had that market covered.
I probably lose like 90% of my listeners if we talk about chainsaws too long. But
I won't bang on that. But so history, 2003, small engine mechanic by trade. Worked in the family business until actually nearly 2 years ago, so end of June 2022.
Okay.
We had a very good business out there. The area changed a lot over the years. I think we ended up having 10 staff, I think. It was a pretty
nice. Yeah, it's pretty
decent operation. Weren't just obviously still for handheld gear, but we sold Bush Ranger products, Hustler zero turns, Greenfields. We're a Greenfield dealer for a long, long time, and a Hustler dealer for a long, long time. So it was good, but
so in the interest of losing a few more listeners, do you ever ride motorbikes?
Only battery-powered mini bikes, Gary.
Ooh, now them's fighting words.
Yeah, I know. No, I used to ride dirt bikes. I haven't ridden one in a long time, but I used to have YZF 450. But I'm a car guy, so
nice.
No motorbikes. So, got out of the business in 2022. Working 6 days a week, and just probably through COVID. Queenslanders are probably pretty lucky. We won't go on too much, or we'll lose a few more listeners. But our restrictions weren't as bad or terrible as some other states. So
as long as you didn't try moving out of Queensland and going back.
Well, you don't want to cross that border. That's for sure. So conditions were good. So it was a very busy period, and I think after 20 years or so, I just needed a change. Opportunity come up with Jack Max and Greenworks. A bit of discussion with the family and a bit of a plan, because you can't just leave a business like that on the drop of a hat.
take a bit of transition, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a bit of transition. Finished up and been here for 2 years on the other side of the counter in the whole goods and distribution side of it.
So was that timing really critical in terms of being about the same time that Greenworks Commercial came into Australia, right?
Yeah, definitely. So Greenworks itself, so obviously we mentioned Jack Max. So Jack Max is the exclusive distributor for Greenworks in Australia and New Zealand. We use a distributor partner for the New Zealand market. So Greenworks was brought in 2021, and we just started off with the 24 volt range, which you probably, listeners, if you're watching, can see some of the tools behind there. So bit of hand tools and OPE, but it quickly expanded to the 40 and 60 volt range. And then in last year, in June 2023, we launched our commercial range. So when I started just as a territory manager with the company, doing some of the spares business in Greenworks. But Greenworks has taken off pretty astronomically in the market. So moved into that side of it with a few of our other team in the company.
Yeah, so you're all on the road a lot these days, running around meeting people?
On the road a fair bit. I mainly focus in the commercial side. Going around helping. We go through our national dealer network of commercial dealers. So they are separate to our standard Greenworks dealer. Obviously, with the products and the range and the product size and range is a very big selling point for us. But not a lot of shops are equipped to be able to keep a Optimus zero turn or a stand on and the full range of handhelds. So we have a commercial dealer network and then our standard 40 and 60 volt dealer network.
Well, I think pretty sure I've posted a couple of pictures on LMCA of some Greenworks gear that I saw in Costco at one stage. Yes.
So Costco, very limited in the Australian market. So in the US and around the world, Costco and those main channels are pretty big for Greenworks tools in the US market. But as we know, I think in Australia, and we've shown our overseas counterparts this by taking them to Costco's, is that people don't go in Australia to Costco for OPE. They go there to buy massive big bread rolls and pizzas and big packets of toilet paper and chips. So
and discounted dog food.
Discounted dog food, and coffins.
That's interesting.
So we had to initially channel manage what we call that. So that I think they only have 2 or 3 products, but it is of the 80 volt range, which we don't supply in the country. And I think there's 2 or 3 tools, but our 60 volt range is actually better spec than the 80 volt.
Interesting.
It's just a battery essentially. But in the US, it's a pretty big market. With Greenworks, we do have a multi-platform voltage platform, which a lot of your listeners, would probably know. So we've got 24, 40, 60, and 82. So, obviously batteries don't work in between those voltages, but the reason Greenworks went down that path years ago was to supply tools and products to different levels of consumer. So obviously our 82 volt will start at the top, is focused purely on day in, day out commercial contractor, or even the heavy landowner power and performance in that range. 60 volts our prosumer range, and that's our most popular selling platform in Australia. So there's definitely contractors that use our 60 volt range, but it's obviously focused at the homeowner that wants that just as good as their current petrol tool performance.
I've noticed that with a number of other brands and petrol tools as well, though. A lot of contractors will go for a prosumer ride-on mower, zero turn, or whippersnapper line trimmer, however we want to label it.
Yeah, we'll go at whippersnapper.
we can do that.
What does Ben from Catch Pro? What do you call it?
Bipper dipper.
What are that? Bipper dipper. That's the one. That's the one. We'll go middle. We'll go that one. But so, and then obviously 40 volt for the sort of light work and the smaller. Someone wants a bit of lightweight product still with a bit of power, and then 24 volt. I think if you've got a townhouse and you don't need anything big, that might be. But in all honesty, we don't really. There's a bit of market there, but mainly it's 60 and 82 volt these days.
Is there a bit of crossover between some of those tools because they're lightweight or anything along those lines? Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money season after season. Yeah, so what I was saying is that certainly with some of the other products, you see people go for some of the prosumer or even the really lightweight stuff just because for a particular tool, it's awesome to have something that's a little bit lighter and easier to chuck around. So if you want a blower for cleaning out your shed or like if you're going to some of the lighter weight hand tools, like a lot of brands are going into hand pruners now, those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely. The thing with battery, and I found this in my previous career behind the counter, is that people want lightweight, but they want run time, and they immediately put battery as it's got to be ultra light. And not all battery tools need to be ultra light. Like we we're just talking about chainsaws before, and I don't want to lose the audience again, but some chainsaws, like some of our commercial ones, you want a bit of weight in it because you want the saw to do the work. So our 40 volt range ticks a box, but mainly 60 and 82 and 60 volt. There's so many tools. Like we got a lot of contractors that use our ride-on mower or zero turn, and they're doing very well with that unit. Same as the hand tools as well. The product is built to a particular standard and works very well in that marketplace.
Yeah, so you've got quite a good range there. And I know I've seen Greenworks come out with a zero turn around the same time as Ego came out with a zero turn in Australia. And talking to some of the dealers, because I dealer shop, I can look for dealers that I like rather than just going with one brand or anything along those lines. But talking to the dealers, some of the Greenworks tools had advantages over the Ego tools. Sometimes the Ego tools had advantage over the Greenworks tools. But I think the initial offering of zero turns from both brands, I would say they were probably consumer level, maybe prosumer.
Definitely, and I think Barry and the team at Ego, I see him say that. Our ride-on and our zero turn, I'm pretty sure the Z6 as well. They're targeted to a consumer market, but they definitely can survive in a commercial environment. But I mean, if you're going to want to do 5 acres off one hit, they're not the tools. They're not built for that.
You do see contractors using them though.
Definitely. I see it a fair bit on LMCA. There's quite a few guys for both products. I think in terms of the US market, and I'm talking purely battery OP here, like Ego and Greenworks are two of the top players in that battery space, and that's because they both only have ever made battery product. I'm not going to talk too much more on for Ego, but
of course,
we don't make, either of us don't make petrol tools, so and there's I know our zero turn and even our ride on in the 60 volt range, that product works really, really well. It's got some solid, it's a fully welded chassis, interchangeable batteries, fan cooled. It's all under the seat for central placement of the battery packs. Then we get a nice little storage tub at the back. Sacrificial pins on our blade holders. So if you were using it commercially and you hit what do you find on your sites, mate? Brick, star pickets, steel rakes. Someone told me at a demo I was doing a couple of weeks ago, they run over some bras, Coke bottles, beer bottles, whatever you find on site, it won't damage the motor on our particular unit. So they're built for a particular purpose, but they work very well in a commercial application. We've actually got a couple of new exciting products in our sit-on range in the 60 volt coming out later this year. So
I think with those 60-volt sit-on mowers, I think, am I right in saying that they were designed so that you have several cartridge batteries that go into it, and depending on which cartridge battery you're talking about as to whether it operates the wheel motors or the blade motors?
So the original models that a lot of our territory managers would have taken out was some of our sample stock, but the product on the market, and that was right. So 2 batteries needed to be to drive the unit, 2 for the left blade motor and 2 for the right. But we actually never sold any of those in the market. They were just some of our demo ones, which we've still got now. Some of those have got 300, 400, 500 hours on them.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting that they weren't sold. They were only for demo.
Yeah. So, and we'll touch on why we do that in a second.
Yeah.
But all the models that are sold on market, they take up to 6 batteries, but we only need a minimum of 1. They're all parallel, so they'll all draw from 1 battery at a time. So you only have to have 1 in there to drive it, or 2 in there to actually cut.
Yeah.
But you can have up to 6. So 6 will give you your best run time on 1 hit, but we can pull 2 out, put them on the dual port charger.
Yep.
Dual port charger will take about 50 minutes to charge up. But yeah, the original ones, you did need 2 for drive, 2 for blade left, 2 for blade right. But now it's just 6 ports, and it doesn't matter where you have them. It's all parallel.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So that makes it a lot more mainstream, I guess.
Definitely. The other way definitely was one of the earlier generation products, and we just never brought that one. It didn't make sense to us to have all 6 in there in 1 hit.
But for a commercial contractor using a non-commercial mower like this, you could have 6 batteries in the mower, go out there, and you set up to 5 acres. So suppose they're cutting a small acreage lifestyle property. They could have 6 batteries in the mower doing that, and then moving from one job to the next, chuck a couple of batteries in the dual port charger. If they've got more than 6 batteries, they could keep on going with the full 6 array and just keep swapping batteries in and out.
Definitely,
in between jobs.
Definitely if they've got onboard charging.
This is an interesting one. I find a lot of people nowadays will charge on site too. So I do it, but I'm on a commercial site, so it makes a lot of sense for me. But even on a residential property, if you're pulling up to a lifestyle acreage type property, often they'll have an arrangement with the owner where they can plug a charger in and away you go.
I think a lot of our customers and a lot of clients, and this is the feedback we hear from a lot of our, whether we're doing demos around the country or people that are using our products, is that customers are happy that people are using battery powered gear, so they don't mind if they're using charging on site. So
I think it makes a big difference if you're there for 15 minutes. If you turn up and you do a 1/4 acre block or a 500 square metre block, it's not worth plugging your charger in. But if you're doing a couple of acres, a small lifestyle, anything from 1 acre and up, it makes sense to bring your charger out, plug it in there. And the reality is, if you're trying to run it with onboard charging, you've got a fairly expensive setup to do onboard charging. So it's a big commitment to do that.
It is, and that's a big space that I know a lot of the batteries manufacturers and OEMs were all in that field and working out solutions. I'm in touch with our US team and our team in China quite regularly on solutions. The US team are launching something for this season with onboard, and the big feedback for us is onboard but easily mobile. Like, can I take it out of my van and take it inside to charge what I need to do? Rather than having to, like we're talking about, investing in lithium batteries stored on the ute, stored in the van, and then having onboard charging and whatnot available. So that's something that we're a fair way down the path of in Greenworks.
So if it's easily mobile, it'd have to be one-man lift or on wheels, like a trolley.
On wheels, yeah. I think wheels is a big one. You talk like a big battery bank or a whatnot, or a tank or something, like those things have to be secured, and they can weigh a couple 100 kilos. So, and they take a lot of valuable space for an operator. So
let's bridge the gap here while we're talking about mowers. So when you go from the not commercial, all your homeowner sit-on machines where they're 60-volt cartridge batteries.
Yep.
How many watt hours of battery would they have in if you got 6 batteries plugged into the mower?
Oh, that's a good question, mate. Oh, you're gonna have to make me get my calculator out.
I just want to compare it to, because we're going to go straight in to talk about some very commercial machines that you've got
Yeah,
there. which-
definitely, and why we don't do interchangeable battery in our sit-on product. So give me 1 second because I can give you that answer. What I should do, Gary, is have my catalog. There we go. Sorry,
It's all right.
viewers, for the vest.
That's all right. We need to get the full view of Gary.
You got the full view, and I'm not going to charge anyone a subscription fee either.
Ah,
So each battery in our 60-volt product is 432 watt hours.
so per battery, 432
Per
watt
battery.
hours. So if you're running 6 batteries, that's going to be up.
You're looking about just under 2,600, 2,592.
2,000 watt hours.
Yeah, 2,500. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So by comparison, if you go to, and help me with the models here, but is your 32-inch Stander the smallest commercial offering?
It is, yeah. So that has 8 kilowatt battery.
Right. So you go from 2.5 kilowatts to 8 kilowatts. Boom.
Yeah. Boom.
And that's one of the reasons why it's commercial, because it's got the watt hours.
Watt hours, definitely, mate. And, obviously voltage is very important for the initial power, but exactly what you touch on, and I've heard you do it a lot over your podcast over the years, watt hours is really what anyone, pardon the pun, what everyone really needs to be looking at.
Yeah. So let's talk about voltage there too, because I think in terms of understanding how batteries convey power to the motors, you've got several factors that come into it, right? And you've got the easiest analogy is how big is your hose and how many hoses are you running?
That's
so
right.
if you're talking lithium batteries, they're probably 3 to 4 volts per cell. So if you run 2 cells parallel, then it's like running 2 hoses. So if you want to go up to 60 volts, you can imagine that's got to be about 20 batteries in parallel, and then however many in series on that to get your watt hours.
Watt hours, yeah.
Right. But if you're going to the commercial, what voltage are you running?
82.
Okay, yep. So same as your handheld commercial tools then.
Yep. Except so in the 82 volt range, and there's a clear divide. So the hand tools are very similar setup with parallel and series batteries, and we use a 21700 cell
Okay.
in the 82 volt and also in the 60 volt 8 amp hour.
Yep.
When we go on board, we use a lithium phosphate or LFP battery in a prismatic cell configuration. So,
yeah. Now you touched on a number there, 21700, and a lot of people who know what the numbers mean, if you're talking cylindrical cells that look like your traditional AA batteries, but with lithium they're a different size, so they measure them by size. So an 18650 is the most common size lithium cylinder type cell. And then yours are 21700.
21700. So 18650 is what most companies do. A lot have gone to 21700s, which is just exactly how you explained it with the cell types.
Yeah. And then you go to what some people call a pouch cell or a what did you call it?
Pouch lithium cell. Yeah. We use a prismatic sort of setup, so it's not full pouch lithium type setup, but the way the cells are installed and put in place in the battery pack on the Optimus range and our UTV range is a prismatic cell using LFP technology. And we can delve into why we use LFP on those products as well.
So I think the style of the cell is really important here, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of watt hours. If you go to a pouch cell and tell me what the difference is with prismatic cells, but you're essentially getting the surface area of that lithium into a more usable function so that, again, it comes back to that hose analogy. You're opening up the size of the hose.
Definitely. Obviously, on our 32s, all our stand-ons and the Optimus, we want to keep the battery pack. We have a bit more space than we do with a hand tool. So we are starting to see that pouch-style setup come through in a suitcase battery setups and even some of the smaller battery packs now with other brands. I know we've got 2 pouch batteries that are in the US market currently, about to be relaunched there. I think that's the next sort of phase in battery technology and especially battery OPE, because we're always looking for, like we touched on with tools, more bang, lighter weight, longer run time. So
and I think the other key thing there would be the
longevity of the battery. Yeah.
So if you have a round cell, it's harder to control the cell temperature. Whereas if you got your pouch cells, then your cell's not going to spike in temperature as much.
No, and then your battery management system can work even better. Nearly all the good brands that we all know have a pretty good battery management system.
Yes.
Our one, if there's something happened to the cell pack in our handheld batteries, it cuts the negative off straight away if it was on charge, which is a question I get asked quite a lot. There's a lot of battery fires at the moment, and that comes back to cheap e-bike imports and e-scooters that are unregulated, and some of them probably don't even have a BMS in them, mate, to be honest, so which is why they're catching on fire.
You can say categorically some of them do not have a BMS.
Yeah, they do not, but like most of the brands that you've had on your show or you would have, I think nearly every one of those is a very safe charging technology and a very safe cell battery protection system in each battery product, that's for sure.
So a basic BMS, do you mind if we go into that for a couple of minutes?
No, we can touch on that.
My understanding, and tell me, I'd love to know the inner workings of Greenworks, but my understanding with the BMS, you basically got a bunch of electronics attached to your batteries and it monitors your battery cells individually. So when you plug in a charger, a typical lithium charger, what it does is it goes in through the biggest hose connected that you can, and it pumps as much voltage into that big hose as possible, which then feeds off from that hose to all of the individual cells. And your battery management system sits there going, if this cell reaches 4 volts, then I need to lead power off that cell over to the next cell so that this cell's not overcharging and not getting hot. So they also have thermometers in there to make sure that the temperature is managed as well as the voltage is managed until they're all balanced, which is why they call a balanced charger for a lot of these things.
Yeah, you've exactly nailed it, and that's pretty much how we employ our BMS system as well.
Yeah.
And when we do have a faulty battery, when we plug it into our battery diagnostics tools, it tells us each individual cell voltage. And a lot of the problems with batteries and for any product, really, any brand, is one of the cells might have just dropped below the voltage, the safety cutoff for the BMS, and then it renders the whole battery pack no good.
I found a really good hack for that with my radio-controlled planes. So this is slightly different lithium technology, but what I did is I got a really cheap radio-controlled plane that had a dumb charger. And what I'd do is if a particular battery had a cell drop, I'd plug it into the dumb charger and it would get that voltage from 2.5 volts back up to 3.5 volts. And then I'd pull that off and put the balance charger back on there, because the balance charger wouldn't charge it if it dropped below 3 volts. It'd just be like, nope, you're going, see you later. Whereas the cheap dummy charger, it didn't check it. It just started pumping. And obviously that's really dangerous, right? That's where fires start.
Yeah, I can't comment on that one, but there are, and there obviously you got your dummy charger, but there are tools out there that will allow you to
resurrect
a battery. We don't do that. We just replace if they're under warranty. Obviously, part of the BMS, its protection is under voltage, but also an over voltage as well as temperature range as well. So I think we have a fairly effective BMS in all of our product. And obviously when we're talking 82 volt, but we're also talking onboard 8 kilowatt or 24 kilowatt batteries, and you want your technology to be at the forefront, which definitely Greenworks are up there.
Now that we've covered that really boring technical stuff, which gets me excited.
Hopefully we've still got some people there. I don't mean to bore anyone.
It gets me going. I'm a fairly simple man. But,
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.